Have you ever felt like you're totally faking it? Like any minute now, everyone's going to realize you have no idea what you're doing. Like you're just waiting for someone to pull back the curtain and call you out. Yeah, me too. Imposter syndrome. It's that sneaky voice that whispers, you're not good enough. It's been with me since day one of starting my journey as an entrepreneur. And let me tell you, it doesn't just hit you once and then disappear. It has an annoying way of showing up at the worst times, right when you're about to take a leap into something new. And you know what? It's not just the big moments. It can be everyday little stuff like sending an email, launching a product, or pitching an idea. You've worked hard, you've prepared, but still there's that doubt in your mind. And here's the thing. Imposter syndrome doesn't have to stop us. If that sounds familiar, if you've ever felt that little voice in your head saying, you're just not cut out for this, keep watching because I'm going to share strategies I've used to get past it, and not just once, but every time it tries to creep its way back in, because imposter syndrome is an ongoing battle. But I've learned a few tricks along the way to keep it in check. So let's dive in and start tackling it together. So if you're a creator or an entrepreneur, you know the drill. You put yourself out there, you share your ideas, your projects, your passions, and boom, suddenly that little voice pops up. You're a fraud. You're not qualified. Who do you think you are? And it can hit really hard. And this just isn't feeling nervous. It's like a full-on assault to your self-worth. And honestly, it's exhausting. You're creating amazing content or building something awesome, but you still like you're faking your way through the entire process. And believe me, it's not just you. Research indicates that approximately 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome in their lives. I can't even believe that it's not 100%. I don't know one person in my group of friends that doesn't question themselves ever. And there are lots of studies about this. A systematic review of 62 studies found rates of imposter syndrome to be anywhere from 56% to 82% in various groups, including graduate students, college students, nurses, med students, and other professions. And not only that, a Twitter poll found that 87% of respondents said they had experienced imposter syndrome. Way to go, Twitter. You guys just keep on doing what you're doing. The American Psychological Association reported that up to 82% of people face feelings of imposter phenomenon, struggling with the sense they haven't earned what they've achieved, and they're a fraud. Now, when I first started out with my copywriting business, which is just one of my businesses, I remember this e-commerce company I was working for. I didn't know if I was good enough, but I pushed through it and I did my best. Even through the little monster in my head saying, you're not worthy, you don't have enough experience, I kept going anyway. And the funny thing is my client loved my ideas, but that voice in my head, it didn't care. It just kept telling me, you're lucky you even have this job. And that's a trap, right? Even when you're successful and people love what you do, you still question if you deserve it. And the crazy thing is I helped that client increase their sales conversions by more than 77%. And they ended up lining their pockets with a lot of extra cash. I'm talking 5-point-something million just that year with just one copywriting page I did for them. And that was a big win. And I've had other smaller wins too. And one of the things about these tiny wins that I do that helps me overcome the imposter syndrome is to document the wins. Every time that monster comes into my head and tells me I'm not good enough, I'm not cut out for this, it reminds me of the things I've accomplished, big and small. And no, it wasn't luck. It was hard work, skill, and persistence. But let's be real. Imposter syndrome doesn't vanish overnight. Sometimes it creeps back in, especially when we're taking on something new or intimidating. Now, I've applied for job after job and got denied, but I've also looked at every proposal that I submitted as a way to hone my skills as a writer and make myself an even better writer. And that's where the emotional part hits. It's fear. It's fear of being found out, fear of being a fake, fear of disappointing people who believe in me. And it can feel really isolating, right? But here's what I realized. If you aren't feeling some doubt, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Feeling a little bit like a fraud often means you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and reaching for something bigger than you've accomplished before. Here's what's crazy. Overcoming imposter syndrome doesn't just make you feel better. It's a game changer for your work. Now, once I started keeping record of my achievements, I began to show up more confidently. And confidence attracts opportunity. It really does. When you're able to own your accomplishments, you put yourself in a position to reach even higher. Plus, if you're transparent about your struggles, you'll notice that people relate to you more, not less. People respect those who can admit that they're human, people that can admit they've failed. So I try to be open about it with my clients and my audience. Authenticity is powerful, whether it's in dating, in the business world, or whatever. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm being vulnerable and open with you. And it's not just me. Some of the biggest names in the world have gone on record about battling the imposter syndrome. Maya Angelou, even after winning countless awards, still feared that people would find out that she was faking it. Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, has said the same thing. These are people at the top of their game, and they still feel the imposter syndrome. So if you're in that boat, you're in good company and you're not alone. While imposter syndrome can be viewed negatively, it can actually serve as a powerful catalyst for personal and professional growth. When that familiar flicker of self-doubt emerges, it can be reframed as a signal to step up and prove your capabilities, not just to others, but more importantly, to yourself. This reframing process transforms the potentially paralyzing effects of imposter syndrome into a motivational force. Instead of allowing these feelings to diminish your confidence, you can channel them into productive energy. It's like telling that voice in your head, all right, let's show you who's really in charge here, and it's me. Research supports this perspective, suggesting individuals experiencing imposter syndrome often exhibit traits of conscientiousness and perfectionism. These characteristics, when harnessed effectively, can drive exceptional performance and attention to detail. For instance, a study found that employees with imposter syndrome tendencies were rated by supervisors as having better job performance and better interpersonal skills. So when imposter syndrome hits, it's easy to feel deflated, to start believing you don't belong. But what if, instead of seeing imposter syndrome as a roadblock, you use it as fuel for the fire? That feeling of self-doubt, of questioning your capabilities, can actually push you to go above and beyond. It's as if you're telling that doubting voice, you think I'm not good enough? Watch me prove you wrong. And this shift from doubt to determination can be incredibly empowering. For me, every time that whisper of doubt shows up, I take it as a cue to step up my game. Instead of shrinking back or second guessing, I use it as a call to action for myself. To prepare more, to sharpen my skills, to learn more tools, and to produce work that I can't argue with. Make it so good. Like when I have a big presentation to do, for instance, I still have that voice that says, well, what if you don't know your stuff well enough? I lean into the prep even harder. I use AI tools to help me make it easier. I dive into research. I anticipate questions and make sure that I'm over-prepared. And it's not because I want to prove something to others. It's because I want to prove it to myself that I am good enough. Think of it this way. Every time the imposter syndrome shows up, it's like a weight training for your confidence. Each time you rise to the challenge, you're strengthening that inner belief in yourself. And over time, these little victories, these little moments where you go the extra mile to silence the self-doubt and build yourself up, Suddenly, that voice starts to lose its grip because you're armed with a history of proof that you can do it and you can do it well. That's why I love documenting my little wins so I can look at it later. I also find this approach sparks creativity and innovation. When you're pushing yourself to show up and outsmart that inner critic, it forces you to think differently. You put on a different thinking hat to experiment and to find fresh ways to improve. It's almost like doubt becomes a challenge. Well, I'll think to myself, how can I turn this feeling or this thought that I'm having into something productive and something incredible? And often when this happens, it leads to ideas and approaches I might not have explored if I felt 100% confident from the start. So the next time imposter syndrome comes knocking, try reframing it. Use it as a motivator, a prompt to dig deeper, prepare more, and push your limits. See it as a sign that you're on the brink of something meaningful, because often the things that scare us the most are precisely the things that lead us to the most growth. Imagine this. The next time the imposter syndrome hits, that little monster in your head, instead of letting it pull you down, you can turn it into your secret weapon. What if, rather than shrinking from it, you lean in, using it as fuel for the fire instead of dousing it? That's a powerful shift. Embracing the doubt not as an enemy, but as a tool to make you sharper, bolder, and more resilient. Now picture this. Every time the imposter syndrome voice whispers, "You're not enough," use it as a cue to level up, to stretch even further, because it's not about silencing that doubt completely. It's there for a reason. But in fact, over time, you might realize it never truly goes away. But here's the difference. You'll find that it loses its hold. That initial jolt of self-doubt may come, but it will be quieter and it's easier to not pay as much attention to it. You can tell yourself, I've got this. I've proven it before. And you just keep going. You'll become stronger each time, like building mental calluses that make you more and more resilient. It's like working out. You don't just become stronger because you lift weights one time. And resilience and persistence is what will set you apart, not just because you're capable, but because you're unstoppable. You have tenacity. It's the difference between hesitating at a challenge and charging into it with confidence. Over time, you'll find yourself tackling projects that once seemed intimidating, breaking through the barriers that doubt used to reinforce. And here's the real beauty. When you've learned to turn imposter syndrome into fuel, nothing can stop you. You'll become someone who doesn't just chase dreams, but you're the person that creates dreams and makes them reality, boldly and unapologetically. And the world, it responds to that energy. People see you showing up fully and authentically, doubt and all. And all that authenticity, it's magnetic. You'll become a force, a creator, a leader who doesn't just push past the doubt, but uses it to amplify your growth and your success. So lean in and embrace it. Let the imposter syndrome be your secret weapon. Let it be the thing that drives you not just to be good enough, but to be extraordinary. Because honestly, when you're able to thrive despite the doubt, you become unstoppable. And the courageous version of you is what the world needs to see. Here's a quick technique that really helped me. I call it the 3 R's. Recognize, record, and reframe. First, recognize the thought for what it is. It's a moment of doubt. It's not the truth. Second is to record your wins. Write them down, put them in a notepad, put them in Google Doc. And the third is finally reframe. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, think, I'm growing into this role. I'm getting stronger with every step. It's a little reframing process in your mind. Try it. Just try it and see how it shifts your perspective. The 3 R's technique, recognize, record, and reframe, is a practical tool you can use to manage imposter syndrome and negative self-talk. Techniques like the 3 R's are used in things like cognitive behavioral therapy and positive psychology, where it helps you reframe negative thoughts and focus on accomplishments to help you combat self-doubt. Recognizing these negative thoughts and recording positive achievements and reframing limiting beliefs are foundational strategies, and they're often recommended in therapeutic settings and personal development. So don't wait around hoping imposter syndrome will just fade away, because honestly, if you got it, it's likely to not just disappear. That doubt can linger if we don't take steps to address it, but the good news is you have the power to shift it. Start taking action now. Don't let it dictate your choices or hold you back from opportunities that could be life-changing. Doesn't have to be a huge leap. Remember to reframe, because sometimes the most impactful changes start little, start small. Write down those little accomplishments, even little tiny wins like waking up in the morning, making coffee, getting out of bed is a win. These little wins matter more than we realize. Reflect on what you're proud of. Remind yourself of your skills and keep those notes handy for the days when the doubt starts creeping in. Or maybe even reach out to someone you trust, someone who can give you a reality check and remind you of your strengths from a fresh perspective. And here's a powerful approach. Just take one small step outside of your comfort zone today. It might be starting a new project you've been overthinking, sharing your work with someone new, or even setting a goal that feels ambitious. These little actions add up bit by bit, building confidence over time. The doubt still may be there, but each step forward reduces its grip. So if you've been waiting for a sign, a little nudge to finally push past the doubts and start showing up fully, this is it. The path out of imposter syndrome begins with action, and the person you're becoming on the other side, they're stronger, they're more confident, and they're ready for what's next. So here's what I want you to do next. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt the imposter syndrome, because honestly, you're so not alone in this. And I want to get a conversation going. I want to hear stories about how you've handled those moments of doubt. And hey, if you found any of this helpful, make sure to subscribe, follow, like, comment so you don't miss out on my next video. We're all in this together, figuring it out one step at a time, growing, learning, and showing up as best versions of ourselves. Let's kick the imposter syndrome to the curb once and for all. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.